Hello, Silas here. This next video is something I recorded back in April. It's taken me a while to upload it. I didn't know exactly where to put it in what section of the site or my page of this channel, but I'm posting it here. It has something familiar to do with the love series that I just started, as well as the parenting series that I'm getting into. And it's also, since I recorded it, she has started her peaceful parenting podcast, so there'll be links to that in the low bar as well. So we're just getting right into the video.
Okay, so starting recording. So, hello, this is Silas. Just recording this new different format. I just thought I'd have these different things where we just chat about different topics with different people I met. Uh, the topic for this one, I'm not as prepared. I should get it up. Do you have it by any chance?
The one that you just sent me through the link on Skype.
Yes. No, not that. Okay, so those ones you can get those up. But the topic, it was, I think this from
through Messenger.
yeah, off the top of my head. Okay, I guess you can introduce yourself too first before we get into the whole thing.
Absolutely. I am Melissa Rajkovich, and I'm a single mom, and I'm an anarchist, and I have a lot of projects I'm involved in. I do a couple of podcasts, and I started writing for the Voluntarist, which is a newspaper in Colorado. And I'm in school, and eventually I'm going to get a farm with my children.
Yeah, live the ANTAP life, which we should all strive for. But yeah. Okay, so the topic, I think it was. I'm not exactly. I can't exactly recall how it came to be, but I think it was.
I have it right here. If you want me to read it.
Yes, read it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Whom would you say is the primary victim of a single mother on welfare with one kid, and that just got pregnant from a second guy whom she told she was on the pill and cheating on the father of the first child that was considering coming back? And then we were going to discuss who the victim is, and maybe in order.
Yeah. So that's five. How many people are involved in that? The mother herself, the child that she already has, the person she was dating or in a relationship with at the time, the child she was pregnant with, and the husband or the father of the first child, the biological father of the first child. Those are just the five people involved in that.
Right.
But I was thinking, like in general, people just say like they say single parenthood or single. It's normally considered single motherhood when they speak about this because I think of the high percentage of the cases due to law and other considerations. It turns out to be single mothers. So they say it's a lot of an issue that deals with single mothers only. But there was this poster that came up, which is in this article that I shared with you, that says abortions are for everyone. You know, they're not just for women. And thinking about this story and that, I was just thinking, when you talk about single parenthood, it involves a lot of people. It's the same when you talk about abortions. It involves a lot of people. So that kind of led me to think, let's have this conversation and see who do you consider is hurting this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, besides the five people I listed, let's say it's just the five people that I listed.
Yeah.
Who, in that sense, let's say top three out of those five, then we can get into more.
Oh my goodness. Well, my first thought is the child that she's pregnant with, and then it would be the child that is already born.
Yeah.
And then it's quite the toss-up between the two fathers, in my opinion. Who has it? Who's more the victim? I would almost kind of say that the father of the one she just got pregnant with is more the victim.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this is, of course, we're just assuming we don't know anything about these people. And we, of course, don't know anything about the people because we don't know the situations. And I feel that's an unfortunate thing that, in my experience, when we talk about relationships, in a lot of cases, I'll say something out of myself. I've been spending a lot of time in the MGTOW community for some years, kind of come out from that. So in the MGTOW community, you have a lot of talk about quote unquote female nature, and they talk about the general risks that the state has right now. I mean, law is not on male sides in general.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not regarding family law, especially.
Yes. Especially with family laws, they talk about just relationships in, I guess it's a male-centric way. It's men going their own way, so it makes sense in that sense. But I think one of the things that's lost in talking about relationships completely is children, is what's happening with kids.
Sure.
We talk about all these situations, and a lot of the MGTOW people will be talking about relationships they've had, relationships they want, and they talk about the nature of what people are looking for in relationships. And I feel a lot of the purpose. What is the purpose of a relationship? What is the purpose of dating? What is the purpose of getting married? What is the purpose of sex? It's reproduction. Yet when we talk about these things, we forget about the children. It seems like that's always not really considered.
Right. And I wonder if that's because they're not consenting individuals in the family unit or in the couple. Like I wonder if they're just a byproduct. So the focus is more on the adults making the decisions versus, the children. So yeah. I wonder if that's why that subject is more focused on the adults.
I mean, it would be, but I'm thinking more towards why are those adults even in the relationship? I think if your focus is the kids, if your focus is I can give this analogy to people. I say, if you're not looking to to live in a house, you don't go talk to architects, start hiring construction companies. You don't go shop around to see empty lots, because that relationship, what is the purpose of doing all those things? Is to build a house. If you want to rent a house, just rent a house. Don't look into building. If you want to just rent a room. And I feel when it comes to relationships, a lot of people are participating without the actual purpose in mind, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Still something I'm developing on that idea, the right analogy to use.
Sure.
But, okay, so let's come back to the main topic. So the top three people definitely agree with you on the kid that's coming into it, because what's the situation that kid is looking forward to? And then, how do you explain to the kid that's already there? Okay. Okay, so now, how about the woman? Where does the woman come into this?
Well, is she a victim at all? I would wonder if, clearly if she was cheating on one partner with the new one, and then also had lied about being on the pill, she's pretty much the culprit of the situation, yeah. I would think, so she's not even in the equation of being a victim, unless she's a victim of herself, in her own actions. But there's a sense of responsibility. But so I don't know. I don't see her. I didn't think about her when you first proposed this conversation. I didn't think of her at all. I looked at all the other players in the situation and not her, because based on her actions are all these consequences that everybody else is now going to be afflicted with. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, but why do you think society? We have to admit that I completely agree with you on that, but we have to admit that goes completely contrary to the messaging that most of society has. Because in that situation, they'll say single motherhood harms the woman more than anything else. We're supposed to look out for the woman in that.
I think that comes to what that does is it gives more credence to the state. I think that a lot of people they want to say that, okay, well, we have to look out for the single moms. We need to help the single moms, and without really giving a good reason as to why, or well, why are why are there so many single moms? And I am one. But, I think that as a whole, people are brought up and raised in this country, especially, to, well, we have to have welfare. We have to have a place for these single moms, because that's going to be it's an established thing in our society that we have single moms, so we need to take care of them. But then that also kind of creates more single moms too, because there is the safety net, so yeah.
Yeah, with that safety net thing, that's one thing. I think we discussed this previously. How when I spend time in Nairobi, you see, you don't find single mothers in situations where there's no welfare system, at least not to that extent.
Sure.
In Kenya, if people do have premarital sex, I don't think it's anywhere close to as much as in the self-selecting groups, which is living in urban areas that I've been to in the States. It's nowhere close to that much. But if you get pregnant, I mean, I could double check on this, but I don't think access to abortion is that high. I know for a fact that most people are definitely a lot more religious, and so they would have some compunction against going through with abortions on that stance of life. But the families come together. If that happens, if somebody gets pregnant, you're still marrying that person. In most cases, at least from one experience I've had where two people were dating, they were both rather successful, relatively successful, upper middle class, younger, grown up in the city. They were dating, just flirting here and there, had some premarital sex. They got pregnant, or I'd say they got pregnant. She got pregnant, and he impregnated her, and they end up getting married. And this is, I mean, that's because of the support system that's there. I mean, the parents come together and they say, "This is a child. We have to do this now." That's the support system there, and you see that in other cases where this state involvement, I think, creates. It's not. I don't know if it's really. I don't know if I want to call it a cancer, or I don't know the right term to call this, because I'm going between thinking of the state as a form of a cancer and a religion, tying the two between that. I don't know if you listen to the Thaddeus Russell talk on the School Sucks podcast.
I haven't heard that one.
Okay. I should also mention that that's how we actually she got in touch with me by hearing me on the School Sucks podcast, and then, and then she reached out and we had a lot of good conversations, and we read it. Right. But yeah, no, definitely check that out, because he talks about how the core of this is religion, and I know one of the biggest realizations for me on my journey towards accepting the non-aggression principle, living by it, finding libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism, was realizing that the statism is a religion.
Yes.
It's definitely a faith system, and that's if when I look at it in that sense, then I can understand why people are just completely illogical with this thing. And it's kind of the thing, if somebody does believe in the state, it's a belief in the state, because there's no actual logical reason for it.
Right. It is a belief. There isn't a thing called the state. There isn't like a tangible thing. It's people who embody what people believe as the state.
Yeah. Now,
so it's faith-based.
Yes. And, okay, now come back to family. Is family a faith-based situation?
Well, so there's different aspects of that. There's the biological, and then there's emotional. And it depends, because I think it can be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what does that mean? Does that mean everybody in the family has to believe that they are family? Or what about the parent that decides, you know what, I don't want to do this, and they bail, So it's not so black and white to me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
but again, if the person does decide to leave, then they believe that they aren't a part of the family, and so then they are no longer considered the family.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm not quite sure how that actually goes into the topic that we're discussing, but I think it comes to the actual trying to define terms here. Because now,
Sure.
who is hurt? Who is hurt in this situation? Is that person, is the father who is a male who's been cheated on? Is he part of the family? Has he been spending time with the kids?
Right.
Now, if you say family is a support system, if family is supposed to be the people who are there for you, who provide for you, who care for you, and in many cases, I think now we can talk about, to me, an extended part that's affected this is the general populace in general. Because when you have this mother come out, chances are, let's just assume that both the men find out what she did, decide to both leave, then the kids are both being raised by someone who doesn't seem to be too nice of a person. She's left out there.
Good at making decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
So now those kids are going through public school or they're being treated in a certain way. There's chances of them actually growing up not too comfortably and then hurting other people in their life because they're hurt as they grow up.
Sure.
Then now the state taxing people to pay for that. So everyone in general, the grander society, how far does it go? What degrees of separation does it get to say, okay, you're not affected anymore? When we talk about things on the state level.
Not affected. Who's not affected anymore?
We say I was trying to consider who I would consider about the greater populace, the citizenry, or just the people, us tax livestock.
Yeah.
Are we affected? Are we part of the people who are hurt in this situation? Are we part of the? Can we be considered a damaged party in this situation?
Well, if a situation arises where this mom is dependent with her children on the state and therefore is needing taxes to fund it,
Yeah.
and the rest of the population is extorted for these taxes to pay for the situation, it definitely would affect them. And it definitely does affect, it's like a ripple effect, right? It might not be as direct of an effect, but
Yeah.
it definitely, it's going to touch you on some level. And then also there's the emotional and mental component. So these children, they grow up and it's not the most stable environment. So they could make good decisions because some kids come out of bad places and become great, but then some can also make bad decisions and become part of the system again. So then, if they go to juvenile hall or if they go to jail or something, then so it's becomes this tax burden from birth to adulthood or whatever. So I think everybody's affected by the situation. It just depends on what level.
Yeah. And I think that's what one of the main cases of the state. It just diffuses responsibility and the damage. It doesn't take them away at all.
No.
And I mean, diffuses might not be the perfect term because it, in a way, it's more like a magnifying glass because it kind of takes it and puts it somewhere else. I think I just equated maybe you can take the light's there anyway. Let's say the light from the sun is there, and then you take that magnifying glass and you can focus it and shine it to different ants or different locations and
Right.
and focus the heat. So those rays, by focusing those heat, the beam onto something else, it might not hit whatever it was hitting below it as hard because it's being focused somewhere else. But those rays are still there, and that laser kind of moves around. So I think it probably fluctuates. When are the people different? When are the different levels of the people being hurt? The man is not being hurt for as long as he doesn't know. Think about this. There's technically, there was this thing I was listening to Tom Likas. Someone called in and said she had 4 kids with one man. They broke up. He cheated with, or she was hooking up with somebody else. Had a relationship with somebody else. Got pregnant in that relationship. Told the man. He said he wanted nothing to do with the kid. So she went back to her original to the father of her 4 kids. Now, she wasn't. She wasn't. She wasn't telling. She wasn't. I mean, the father asked. The first man asked, "Is this my kid?" And she said, "Yeah." Though the kid has different hair color, apparently has a different blood type than either of them. But she did ask for the medical situation, medical history of the second, or the father of the fifth kid. So now in this situation, technically the guy doesn't know. I mean, he probably knows, but if you don't know, how much does damage require knowledge? You know, I think responsibility might require knowledge, like we discussed. A kid isn't really held as responsible, but does damage require knowledge?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, these are very intricate situations to think about in these terms, and damage would require knowledge, and especially if this father decided, I'm just going to go along with this. I might have my doubts, but I'm just going to go along and raise this kid as my own.
Yeah.
And that happens, and I've actually had friends that have done that, and so where does the damage, so then sometimes it seems like the damage is absorbed by the person who knows, but is going to go along with the situation. Yeah, that's very...
It's a tough situation.
That's very interesting perspective.
Because I've personally had a situation where I was in not quite a positive relationship, and some things happened back and forth. There was some lying, and then when I finally told the truth to the person claimed that she was actually insulted that I told the truth. She said that I was actually telling her the truth more for myself, which I guess in a part you were. I mean, I like unburdening. You want to unburden yourself. I prefer being honest about certain things. But she actually claimed that she'd rather have not known. I don't know if that's true, but
I've heard that before, and I've actually heard of, especially in terms of infidelity. I've had friends in relationships where, with them being in relationships where they found out that their partner was cheating or had cheated maybe once, and they would rather have not known than have found out.
Yeah. Now, but what is that? That's because the lady I was talking on the Tom Likas show, she was making the same argument, saying, "Well, that's the kid's father, so I'm not going to tell the kid because now he has brothers, he has sisters, like he has a family. So why would she tell the kid?"
Right. That's heavy too. That's very heavy, it's a common situation. I know you and I have probably heard of people, some degrees apart from us that have been in similar situations, and like I said, I've had a couple of guy friends that have raised children that weren't their own and just went along with it, and then why would you tell the children, especially if they've got a family that loves them?
Yeah.
Does it change the situation for them to know? Aside from maybe them needing like the physical, the medical background of where they actually come from, if there are something that arises, that's tricky too. It's really tricky.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking. So if they're raised in this family, and then at what point do you tell them, or what point do they find out? Or more than likely, when the children in these situations become adults, they do find out. They do find out that that their biological father is somebody totally different, and then that can turn their world upside down. But that happens too. That people find out that their biological parents, right when they become adults. So.
Yeah.
It's got to really affect them at that point too. So it seems like there's no easy answer or way to handle that situation.
No, it definitely isn't. Wait, just reading through this article that I shared with you, the one where abortions are for everyone.
Right.
Okay, so it was just like, it was when Planned Parenthood said abortions are just for women. I'm just going to read through some of what I wrote. There's several readings of this, and I've been quite vocal for my disdain about Planned Parenthood, which, again, back to the, the thing on the School Sucks podcast, I was actually trolling people at the Planned Parenthood march in DC during the inauguration, and just the wanton. I mean, just that's the part that disturbs me the most. It disturbs me personally also for my history of just being so blasé about abortions, just speaking about things that I had no knowledge. And there's this argument that women say, look, it's my body, my choice. They say, look, if you can't get pregnant, you shouldn't be able to talk about this. And I do get that to an end, but can't you also say, if you're not a baby, you have no reason, like if you're not currently a fetus, you can't talk about the abortion? Because that's the part that, to me, that disgusts me the most, was the fact that I didn't take it upon myself to define where I considered life to begin, or what. The fact that I, for so long, also thought of it as, in that sense, of just her body, her choice, that's it. When there's so much more that goes into it. There's the child, the society, the effect, even the effect on her mind. I mean, I get it's your body, but her mind, and it comes really weird because I had this weird thing as a kid but just growing up, where I thought even if somebody amputated like just a part of my pinky, I'd want to die. So yeah, so I can imagine. I mean, that's part of your pinky. That's just something, but this potential life, this missing out on that possibility. Okay, so the first comment on this photo I saw when the Planned Parenthood said abortions aren't just for women with this doctor was, of course they are not just for women. They are what allows men, no, not men, but gutless, irresponsible males to spew sperm at will, and if someone they knock up wants to help them raise a child, they tell her, nope, you can take care of that, and if you don't, it's all on you, all your choice, and then waltz off into the sunset. Now, I mean, I guess this comes, this is definitely a lot more personal for you, going through a divorce and going through that experience.
Sure.
There's also this idea where it's, I don't know if, I mean, for me, I found both men and women do this equally. I think people just do this equally. They make excuses for whatever group they identify with. They like, I doubt this comment was from, I don't think it was from a woman. I'm not quite sure if it was from a female. I also like saying female instead of female and male, because I think women, men, just as they pointed out here, not men, because you have to be, to do that, I think you do have to be, just as you said, a gutless, irresponsible male to do that. A man wouldn't leave, and I don't think. And I mean, man and woman, I think, to me, those are more descriptors of actions versus just being of a certain human biology of a certain age.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So in this case, okay, with the men and women that you said, you knew some men who raised kids that weren't theirs. Did they know this going in? Did they find out later? I mean, if you just give me an anecdotal example, if you.
I had one friend that he and his wife had 4 children together, and then they separated and got back together, and she suspiciously was pregnant right before they got back together. But he kind of went along with it, and I think it was just maybe didn't want to deal with the realities. He had his suspicions from the beginning, but he decided that, I'm choosing to be with this woman. I'm choosing to keep our family together, and I'm just going to raise this child as my own, even if not my own. That was one of the situations. There was another situation where a friend of mine really thought it was his child, and there was a medical issue that had come up where it found out that the baby's blood type was entirely different than both the parents. Oh. And I believe the child was 6 years old at the time. So he, from conception around that time, believed that this child was his until the 6 years old, and was heartbroken, but didn't want to abandon the child, because it didn't matter to him eventually he and his wife separated, but he still maintains that I am the father, because he had, he, similar to the words of men and women, not all fathers are the biological fathers.
Yes.
He's always been the father figure, and so he maintained that even after they had gotten a divorce.
Wow.
And even financial responsibility, and he could have walked, by state standards, he could have said, "Oh, well, here's the paternity test. I'm not the dad, so I'm out of here." But he didn't, and he maintains custody and financial responsibility for his son. So.
Did they have more kids after that?
No.
Okay. The first one you told me about, how long ago was this? Like, what if it's a small enough world that she was actually the person who called in the Tom Likas show?
Right. This is 5 years ago. This is 5 years ago. So
the Tom Likas show thing was a video from, I think, 2013.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll send you the video after this, and you can hear her voice and see if she's actually the person. I mean, it could be a small enough world.
Well, but unfortunately, I think it's a very common thing.
Yeah. I know we're laughing, but yeah, it is. Okay. Well, I think it's going pretty well. I don't know how to end these things, but I think we've covered most of the topic matter. If you had, I don't know if there's anything else you had to say on the actual topic. I think what I wanted to discuss mostly was just trying to figure out who the damaged parties are when it comes to, not the damaged parties, but who is involved in family making. And I think for me, I just have a really big issue with just the state. More state involvement in anything just creates a cancerous situation.
Very much so.
And
it's a breeding ground too for situations,
Yeah.
Because I think the state provides all these services, right, for single moms. So it's almost as if the responsibility for making decisions, like for the responsibility for having sex, because nothing's birth control isn't 100%. The only thing that's 100% is abstinence. I mean, so many things can happen. So.
Yeah.
You take out the personal responsibilities, and if I get pregnant, I can always get assistance, even if the father doesn't stick around. Or so I think the state also provides a breeding ground for irresponsibility on that level.
Yeah. Okay, I think there's definitely a reason why certain societies that developed more monogamous relationships, closer knitted families, have had success.
Sure.
Now, they say that's more of a thing in first world countries. They say has been more of a thing, and that I think is a part of the foundation for those civilizations. But now, when you have these mega states, which are technically the most alpha of alpha male possible, and it's not even it's like polygamy on the scale of cities.
There's a lot of sister wives out there having babies.
Yeah. Where there's no African warlord that could ever hope to get that many wives. So because my grandparents were in polygamous relationships, so that's still a thing. It's still there in Africa, but also due to there seems to be something just built into the way the society is, where it's never going to get to the point where it's this massive size that you have with the state. So has the West, in a sense, regressed to even pre-polygamous? I don't know what kind of... Is this just an entirely new beast that we're seeing here, an entirely new family structure? Can it even be called a family structure? Because we're going back to the thing where just biologically giving your donations doesn't necessarily make you a father or a mother.
Right.
Where does the care aspect come in?
What was that last part?
No, so where does the care aspect come in? Can the state actually be considered a parent at all?
I think in a lot of ways that's the agenda of the state, and And it really could, because you think about all the children that are reliant, and all the families that are reliant on the system in order to just live, and again, it goes back to it also kind of perpetuates the reliance of the state. Okay, so all these people are being irresponsible, they're having babies, well, that's just going to grow the state's power because they're able to just, give services. And also, too, as far as polygamy and monogamy and all that, this country almost it's kind of a crapshoot. It doesn't quite really, there's so many different kinds of families that have, children, so many different couples that might have children from different relationships, or that are into, beyond the structures. They just, they had a relationship, they had a baby, okay, time to move on. Or there are people that are into monogamy and they have kids. There's not really a set cultural standard in this country as far as that goes. It's such a mixed bag, if you will, of family dynamics. So, but I think the state definitely plays a role of the parent, because if you get in trouble, you can turn around and get help, right?
Yeah.
Which is what a parent's supposed to do. So, yeah.
Now, okay, so with having that many kids, what is? I guess we can also not go into this. Like, who is the parent that's? How good of a parent can that state possibly be? Like, can we argue that when I don't like the term elites, but let's say the people who are in the government, just take politicians' families for example.
Sure.
Is the state being a really good parent to that? Like, is it possible to even have that be a good parent? Or just the fact that the nature of the state itself? No, I think that's just no question. Coming from the NAP, it's like, no, the state is getting its money.
Yeah, the question answers itself.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just move on from that. I'm just trying to hit all bases, but no, that's a no-go zone.
Yeah.
It's a non-starter.
Well, because so for me as a mother, raising my children, my first priority is raising them according to my principles, and my principles are based on the NAP. You don't steal from others, and you don't harm others. You treat others the way you want to be treated, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's my whole goal as a parent, is to raise children who are conscious of that. The state can't possibly be a good parent because that's not how they parent, or it parents. It's not based on principles. So, yeah, there's that.
Okay, so speaking of that, now, what if you were in that situation where, let's say this woman that we talked about in the first example, she cheated, and then for some reason she found out about the NAP. Let's say this guy that she was with happens to listen to the School Sucks podcast, or maybe your show, or she was reading an article that you wrote, and he shares that with her, and then she actually starts learning more about the NAP and wants to embrace that, and then. No, but if she wanted to embrace that, she'd have to tell him that's what she did.
Right.
See, that's. This is the thing that it's struggle. When I tell people about the NAP, if somebody is actually just willing to hear about it, I know when I first heard about it, I was just like, how is it that no one told me about this?
Right.
But
and
then,
it also seems like you've always known it all along.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's the kind of thing. It's really those can't be it's not it can't be unseen. It's can't be forgotten.
Yes.
Because I think we kind of innately know it. Like you said, we innately know it. And once you have it, you've got to live it. And I think that's one of the things. It took me a while to realize. Okay, first I heard about it and I was like, why didn't nobody tell me about this? Then I looked at the world and I was like, oh, that's why. Because the world couldn't exist the way it was if somebody was telling me about it.
Sure.
So, I was going back to that situation. What if... I think that, to me, that is a core thing. Now that NAP thing, I'm thinking with a lot of the MGTOW community. I mean, I keep dipping back into that community because there's so many founts of knowledge in there and so many really deep thinkers. There's, of course, a lot of very hurt and angry people.
Right.
But I think the amount of knowledge in there far outstrips anything else. But
Yes.
for some reason, people aren't as NAP compliant or as aware of that. And I don't really know where I'm going with this. I find that sharing that, if a better way to share that with people, I think that's a key thing. That's a key thing. I'm trying to understand better ways to discuss the NAP and share it with people, because anyone who's actually open to it, who tries to reason through it, it's beyond Teflon. It's reality. It's just the way things should be. Which,
well, it's tough because we're for the most part in this country anyway, being brought up like I was told. Well, you don't hate your sister and brother, and you don't steal other people's things.
mm-hmm.
But then you get to adulthood, and that's exactly what the state does. So then you start to justify it because, well, this is what we need for society to function. And then when you reintroduce the NAP to people, like when you relearn about it, you're like, that's right, I remember this from when I was younger. So, and I think that it's hard for people to wrap their heads around it because they were duped for so long.
Yeah.
Like this is the way we should live by the NAP, except we're going to make exceptions for the state. But that doesn't really work because look at the atrocities of the state, and that's not a way to live anyway. And so it's a hard pill to swallow for people to come back around to the NAP, because I think honestly, like most people are raised that way with those rules. So you get older and you start to realize, well, but that didn't apply to all these other adults that I've been interacting with, and
Yeah.
it's more of a mess than you realize, and it's hard to see that. So
Okay, that's another thing I was wondering with the state growth. Okay, people don't hit their kids as much in developed countries as they do in the non-developed countries. And also, I remember I was talking to a friend, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to start going into a series more where I just have conversations." Because I think with the NAP, to me, one time I will always talk about the NAPs. If I hear somebody defending hitting kids, and I just ask them, "Do you know what the non-aggression principle is?" And you can just, the peaceful parenting just rolls off from there. And most of these people do love their children, so that's a very straightforward thing to way to introduce the NAP to people. And of course, raising kids in that way is the best. Now, I've had conversations, and whenever you actually have the conversations with people, they eventually, in most cases, I can just think of maybe 10 that I've had. One of them, the guy eventually just deleted the thread and dipped out. That was in a YouTube thread. But the other times, the people actually like, wow, like I actually hadn't known about this information. But okay, coming back to what I was saying. Peaceful parenting, NAP. Okay, peaceful parenting, not hitting the kids. Being raised in that way that you said. Yes, that happens. But I was telling my friend I was going to have a series where I just list the conversations that I have. Of course, I'm going to ask the people who I have the conversations, can I share this with the public? And most of them agree because it's a positive thing. But
sure.
He says that's a position of the leftists. It's a leftist agreed position, which it kind of is. A lot of the people who are into big government in the general, leftists, progressives, collectivists, they're also towards the not hitting of children.
Right.
Now, when I say, I do understand peaceful parenting is also still parenting. There's still the parenting part in there. It's not just don't hit them. It's not like, hey, I'm not going to hit my kids, but I'm going to put them away in government schools and never see them. So there's that too. But why is it that in countries where the state is really big, there's less physical hitting of the kids, whereas you have, like in Kenya, kids are hit a lot. Like I remember just going back to Kenya, you just walk in a supermarket and there's somebody being hit, somebody hitting a kid. And I remember experiencing this before I was as NAP compliant, and it was just so much in me. I'm thinking, if I'm online, I always talk talk to somebody. But in that situation, I am still embarrassed about this. I remember just walking back and forth and thinking, should I say something to this guy? And it's kind of the thing, you don't know the situation. You think, okay, you could say that and the guy could just reach out and start hitting you. And then, like, I'm not just going to be hit. I'm going to have to, like, take this guy out in front of his kid. Like, there's so much in a different culture. So why is it those cultures with... this is just a random thing, but might there be a connection with hitting? No, I don't want to say from the hitting kids, but why is it cultures that hit kids more don't seem to have as massive a growth of the state? I don't know if that's just a thing to do with. I don't know if there's that correlation does not always mean causation, but there seems to be a correlation with societies that are a lot more violent towards their kids and not having the ability to create these mega states. Now, that could just be due to different IQ things going through, like the weather situation, just having different populace. But, okay, wait, like China. I don't know. I don't know if you can do anything with the rambling that I've said, if you can make any sense here.
My first thought is, if you are dealing with children in a culture that are raised with very authoritarian households.
Yes.
And they're raised by, spare the rod, spoil the child. They're raised with physical violence.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to, and there's a lot of studies that will say otherwise, but they tend to live in fear of authority, and so they obey and they go along with whatever so that they don't get hit. So you don't need as big of a state or a big of an outreach of a state because you've already got compliant citizens, essentially, from birth. If they're raised that way, the parents are basically doing the state's work for them. Whereas, like in this country, like you were saying, the peaceful parenting, there's definitely a lot of leftists that go under that umbrella, and so you see them. Because of course the left is what they're supposed to be more tolerant. They accept things. They have more wiggle room, and they want people to be nurtured. And so they do start to question. Well, my Republican father used to spank me, so I'm not going to do that. There's so many variations to it, but then you have all these children that are raised, and sometimes just because you're not spanking them, some people conflate peaceful parenting with not really paying attention and letting their children run wild, right? So then it can go all over the place. But I think in this country, there's more and more children that are not being spanked, but that's not necessarily, it's not because for the better, it's just that their parents decided, well, we're not going to do that, but they're still not guiding them. And so you're creating a society with these children that still don't quite have a good parenting model. And now you need a bigger state to handle all of this independence and running around, essentially. It's kind of my idea on it. So,
makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah, that whole the locus of control is just different in that situation where it's Yeah, so I think lack of parenting in general is this not a peaceful situation. Lack of parenting is violence.
Yes.
And I think that actually ties back into what we were discussing. The people who were hurt the most in that situation, I think, with the woman are the two children. Now it's about who's hurt the most out of that. It's because both of them will have challenges with the parenting situation. Yeah. I don't know. It's been a good talk. I don't know how long we've been talking for. These things kind of just go.
A little bit, but I mean, there's so many variables.
Yeah.
There's so many things that go into it. So, and it's definitely, these are good questions, and this was a good conversation that you broached me with, and it's like, and I remember when you first asked me, who do you think the victim was, and it was like, wow, I need to think about this, and I thought about it, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it becomes more and more of a rabbit hole in a sense where, well, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen, and because of these players, and so definitely the ripple effect happens, and then yeah. So
And then I'm gonna white knight a little bit here, but also for for the woman, like what happened to her to get her into that situation? You know, like why would you be in that familial situation where you'd be in that?
Maybe that was her parenting model.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, for me, I think that's a challenge. There's definitely. I want to definitely question that more, and yeah, it might not be as big of a deal here in the States, but I think in developing countries, in Kenya specifically, because I have more of a connection with that country. That's something I want to broach more. It's something I definitely want to discuss more and find different ways to discuss with peaceful parenting. And I'm also worried about the reverse, where the states are getting bigger. The states are copying the welfare models that's there in the West.
Right.
And now when you do that, then you can start encouraging the similar situations. Now, this is a weird transitionary period. I mean, when they say developing country, I think it's good because it's developing, so you don't know where it's going to develop to. It's going to develop into larger states, smaller states. What are they going to absorb from other countries? What are they going to change to fit their own models? So,
yeah.
I mean, this another good analogy I used for somebody with the peaceful parenting is, I do know there's certain cases where certain people genetically just have different dispositions to things. Goes across races, goes against due to several reasons. But I said, look, if you had a kid and there was a Rottweiler that was raised peacefully, happily, and then there was a Chihuahua that was this hit as it grew up every day, who would you leave? Which dog would you leave your kid with?
Right.
You know, so even if we can say that there are some races or some cultures or some people or whatever you want to say, like genetically have predispositions to violence in certain ways, raising them peacefully can help that situation. You know,
absolutely.
Like, I don't care if you have 150 IQ, but you were hit every day you were growing up. I would rather talk to somebody who has like 80 IQ, but is just happy and peaceful.
Right. It wasn't exposed to the violence.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. But oh yeah, one more thing. There's something you mentioned that this is another thing that was bugging me a lot for a while. I just heard of this from Stefan Monia pointed this out that spare the rod. Spare the rod, spoil the child thing. They were actually talking about like the rod as in like the road, as in the instruction. It's not actually the rod like hitting kids. I don't know if you were familiar with that.
I am. Well, that's a passage in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I grew up Southern Baptist.
Okay.
And my parents' church taught them that the rod represented like a stick.
Yes.
Belt, right?
Yeah.
So to them, that's what that meant, and that's how I was raised.
Yes, same to me. That's what it was. That's what it's been. So I mean, I know I'm kind of defending the Christians of this, but that was part of why I was like, what is with this religion? You know, that was one of the things.
It's a matter of interpretation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, that one they teach it themselves that way. It's not like it's people from the outside saying this, making this up about Christianity. The Christians actually preach this to their kids, which is, preach it to the flock, which is horrible.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the thing. Like, okay, physical abuse in the church from that kind of theology, then now the kind of abuse that happens through the state religion, through statism. I don't know. Okay, we've been talking for quite a while. I think it's gone pretty well. I definitely would like to pick these up again, but
sure.
I don't know if you mind calling it a talk now, if you had anything else to add on this particular topic, but I don't know. I like the way this went. I'm very rusty on it. For the first time doing it. Thanks. Thanks a lot for bearing with me through this.
Of course. This is fun.
Let's see how this goes. Thanks a lot.
Of course, you're welcome.
Okay.
I was very happy to do it.
Cool. Yeah. What is there any material? You said you write and your channel, or just if you just want to share that stuff. This is what I'm just remembering what people tell me. I've listened to a lot of YouTube channels, so
I actually am writing a peaceful parenting article from the anarchist perspective.
Wow.
It's available online. It's the voluntarist, the Frontier Voluntarist paper. They're physically distributing it in Colorado, United States, but it's available online.
Okay.
And I'm also doing the non-aggression parenting podcast,
Excellent.
which we're about to record our third episode next week. It hasn't actually come out yet. Our first episode was in January, but it's about to be published. And that's a Facebook page that I have with my friend Danilo, who runs Peaceful Anarchism. That's his main podcast. And we became friends a little over a year ago and decided that we should do a peaceful parenting podcast from the anarchist perspective. And with the idea that there are a lot of peaceful parents out there that are like Democrats or statists still, and it might draw them into connecting the dots. Like if you raise your children by the nap, when you want to raise them so that when they're adults they still abide by the nap, So so that's, and then I do another podcast which is just more fun, sitting around with a bunch of friends talking about different topics. That's the Anarchy Roundtable Amongst Friends. So, but yeah, that's the projects I'm involved in right now, and then I've done a couple of other shows. But
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so links will be provided in the low bar for this, or whenever I post this. So send me the links, and then I'll post those on.
Absolutely.
If you have a topic for the next one, I think you can put the ball in your court, and you can.
That'd be great. I have plenty to bring up. So
excellent. Okay.
It'd be fun.
All right. Till next time.
Okay, that's it for now. Thanks to Melissa for her time. Thank you guys for listening. There's going to be links in the low bar to related sites and the things she'd mentioned in the video, as well as a few other things I thought were pertinent. Like, share, and subscribe if you like this, and I'll hopefully bring more conversations like these on different topics and try to improve my sound quality and my conversational style. Seems a little different to have these conversations when you know they're being recorded than when you just have them in person, but I enjoy them and I get a lot of really good ideas, so I'm actually just talking to people. Okay, bye.